Yeah, well, we did the first series last year
Yeah.
on the Pilgrim's Progress, Bunyan's great work. Um, we did, I'm not sure how many episodes it was, 20 episodes or something like that.
Mm.
It might have been more.
Mm-hmm.
It was great to go through it. I grew up reading it. Bob had read it early after he became a Christian. Um, but we both went through it again several times. And one of the things that really struck me was the literary world that Bunyan had created. It's Tolkien talks about this as a secondary world, creating a secondary world,
Yes.
and Bunyan throughout the book is saying, don't pay attention to the story, don't get distracted by the characters or the story, and yet a lot of the characters that he developed were really good, and the places that he described were also really good. And again, Tolkien talks about this, that when you enter into a secondary world, that you're using secondary belief, and in order to do that seamlessly, you have to write a really good and believable story, and that's what Bunyan has done. And I don't think throughout the years that that his book has actually been had its due from a literary perspective because of the allegorical nature of it. And it is written as an allegory. It's written primarily using his own life, so it's very autobiographical. He did not write it to publish. He wrote it. He was in prison. He wrote it for himself. It was only after he was out of prison. Actually, he went out. He got out of prison, uh, went back to prison, finished it while he was in prison. It's funny that
I've
he.
heard of people checking into hotels so that they could maybe work on and
Yes,
finish their book, but I haven't heard of the guy that goes to prison just to write.
right. I don't think that was his primary reason, but that is the result.
I know.
So he finished it there. He comes out of prison. He's got this manuscript. He starts showing it. Now, remember, he's a very successful published author at this time. Um, and he shows this book to his friends, and some of the friends said, "This is fantastic. You should publish it." And other ones went, "Nope, don't let anybody read this. This is awful." And he decided, well, no, I think I'm going to publish it. So he takes it to his publishers, and they're like, "No, this isn't any good. We're not going to." No, it was. There's an argument within the literary world. Is this the first novel in British history?
Yeah.
And now other people say, no, Don Quixote is. Now, I'm not trying to resolve that issue. I don't know. But it was so different that that's why his publishers wouldn't do it. And it actually took John Owen, who was his friend, that read it and said, this has to be published, went to his own personal publisher and said, you must publish this. And after it was published, it's, as we know now, 350 years later, it's one of the most purchased books
Mm-hmm.
in literary history, only
Mm-hmm.
second to the Bible for a long time. And I think J.K. Rowling passed it up, and maybe Tolkien himself. It's because it's so easy to enter into that world that, children. I did an interview on the Restless podcast, and we were talking with Matt, or Michael. So Michael was talking about this. His two children, who are 3 and 5, listen to the audio version of
Mm-hmm.
Pilgrim's Progress and just love it, and they keep listening and they keep listening, and because they're drawn in, and to them, they're walking through the valley of the shadow of death. They're at the house beautiful. They fall into the mire. I mean, it's so visually easy for people to walk themselves through that I think there's been a mistake within literary history that they need to look at it. The people that do these kinds of things, the literary professors need to take a better look at Pilgrim's Progress from the standpoint of story and character development, and I'd love to see that happen within the literary world. But because I was already thinking along these lines, and we were doing the podcast, of course, we were bringing out the allegorical lessons that Bunyan was talking about, which are, of course, incredible and have helped many Christians, especially if you're a Christian that's going through hard times, read Pilgrim's Progress. It is very encouraging
Mm-hmm.
that we can understand how Christ takes us through the journey of life. That it was just fresh in my mind. And so that's where this story just kind of popped in my head. And because I was already engaged within the world, I wanted to see, well, what if other people were leaving the city of destruction?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps in a different way than Christian does. What would that look like? And that's why I wrote the book.